Well, 2025 comes to an end the way 2025 started with a loss, but things feel a lot better than how the year started. We'll talk about that Suns Cavs game and more right after this. A not so happy middle of the day on your New Year's Eve. It is the PHNX Suns post-game show after a 129-113 Suns loss at the hands of the Cavaliers. We are brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app today and use that promo code PHNX365. Deposit $10, bet $5. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets. Must be 21 and over, physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov. I am Espo. That is Gil. We've got the Freckle Mamba Ayrton behind the Mac. And Gil, not the way that you wanted to end the 2025 calendar year, as the Suns couldn't get it going early, shot an abysmal, 15% from inside the arc in the first quarter.
3 of 20?
3 of 20. And they couldn't quite dig themselves out of that hole despite showing flashes in the third quarter.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot this season about the importance of starting fast and starting right off the right foot. I know the Suns have a pretty impressive record when they win the first quarter, but I think in this one, we're not even talking about winning the first quarter. We're talking about not going into the second quarter down 16 points. And there were so many things that this team came out a little sleepy. We talked about it. It was an early game. At the end of the road trip, you're kind of ready to get back home. You've gotten 3 wins on this trip already, traveling from the Bayou to D.C., now to Ohio before you come back this way. So a lot of those things I think worked against them. One thing we know about this team is they always fight, and they did cut it to 4, I think maybe even 2 in the third quarter, and then got away from them. It's just hard when you find yourself that far behind early on. You don't do yourself any favors.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had to scratch and claw in that third to get back in it.
Yep.
They go on an 18-4 run.
You get scratched and clawed too.
Yeah,
Devin
Book.
Booker.
Yeah, actually blood being drawn and no foul being called. Book had 19 in that quarter, but I think this was a case of they just dug themselves too big of a hole where they fought back. They still showed that fight that they have all season, but it took too much just to get back in it. And then that run at the start of the fourth quarter, Cavs going a 24-5 run to essentially just slam the door, most of which was while Book was on the bench to start that quarter. Was only a 96-89 Cavs lead to start the fourth, but it ballooned into the 20-point range in the fourth, and again finished with that 129-113 loss for the Suns. What do you think? I mean, obviously the poor first quarter shooting is a major reason, but what was another thing that you looked at and said that was just a glaring weakness tonight?
I mean, early on looking at it, because it's interesting when you look at the first quarter numbers, right? The Suns actually shot 5 of 10 from threes. Spoilers, they shot around the basket and inside. The only reason it was 16, but the Cavs shot 6 of 14. But the difference was in that first quarter, the points in the paint, and there were some missed rotations, and there were some things that, again, I'm not saying that they were over it. I'm not saying that they were being lazy, but I do think that they weren't necessarily ready to go right away. So that sleepiness, that I guess being lackadaisical or lethargic out there, that was what stood out, and we saw it kind of come on later as the game went on, as they clawed away, because we even talked about it. And I think that I'm not going to say that it was because it was an afternoon game, but this team, we've seen them come out of the gate slow before, but they kind of wake up by the second quarter. This game, they didn't really do it in the second quarter either. It was the third quarter that they did it. And I think that once you're kind of that far behind that late in the game, I mean, we've even seen games this year where the Suns are playing right with somebody, like the Lakers game, the first Lakers game that was played at the Morgue, when they fell behind just because they couldn't score in the third quarter, but then clawed and scratched back away in the fourth quarter. But this game was just a really weird one to fall behind. You're trailing by as many as 19 points really early in the game, and you're trying to figure out in real time how to fix those issues. And I think that's what really stood out. I mentioned the points in the paint. We talked about it coming into the game, the bigs, how that battle is going to be, how Mark Williams is going to hold his own against Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, how the team was going to play against those guys as rim protectors. And I don't think that they answered the call the way we wanted them to. And I think that was a big difference in this one too.
A lot of easy misses too. A lot of good looks for layups and things, especially in that first half. Didn't connect. They shot themselves in the foot in a lot of ways. Their defense was poor in rotation, especially early on. Far too many easy dunks from the dunker spot and easy back cuts that led to layups for the Cavs, and that's a recipe for disaster. When they're getting easy looks and you're missing layups, you're going to have a tough time coming back from that. But you bring up the bigs, and when you have a total of 2 points from the three centers that play for you in an evening, you're not going to beat many teams, definitely not one in the Cavs that have quality big men rotation.
Yeah, Mark Williams only 3 shot attempts in this game, and that's a little discouraging. He did fine on the boards, nine rebounds in this one. But I look at what Evan Mobley did. This is the ranked defensive player of the year, 5 blocks tonight. But even more than the blocks, he altered so many shots. And I think that was what was a little not disheartening, but the most unfortunate part, I think, from Mark's performance there was his last shot attempt of the 3 he took. He was going in, and Evan Mobley was there, and he tried to adjust and get away from him. And I remember saying, I was like, 7-1. Like, go through him, try to go over him, whatever it is.
Take the charge, get a charge call.
At this point, you haven't had a field goal all game. Like, try and do something different. He did get to the line that one time for his only 2 points of the game, but I would have liked to have seen him play with force. We talked about him playing with force before the game, and we didn't see that. Evan Mobley is not, Ben Wallace. He's not the biggest guy out there. Evan Mobley is a thinner guy, and I think that if you impose your physicality a little bit, but if you try to avoid him the way that we saw Mark Williams do, we saw some other guys do it as well. I think there was a play where they were like, I think Ryan Dunn missed 2 or 3 layups in the same possession just because those guys were in there. And I think that really impacted the Suns' ability to kind of score at multiple levels. We talk so much about getting paint touches and how you can spray the ball out and get higher quality looks. Obviously, Devin Booker got going, and I know we'll talk about him, and that really injected life into this team. But around him, I think that, the supporting cast weren't able to support the way we're used to seeing them do that because of that presence of the bigs and what the Cavs were able to do defensively there.
Again, I think it's another night that shows your weakness at lack of depth at center too, because without Mark really having it going offensively, there's nowhere you can turn.
Yeah.
Bizzoso isn't going to give you that offense. He had a sloppy game as well. But let's take a look at the numbers to just get a global picture of how tonight went. A 129-113 loss. As we said, Suns shot 40%. They were 42 of 105. They had 9 more field goal attempts than the Cavs, mostly because they were getting their own misses and then missing off their own misses. Even with 9 more shot attempts, they had 6 fewer field goals made, as the Cavs were 48 of 96, 50% clip there. Suns shot well from deep. They were 15 of 36, 41%. Almost 42%, the Cavs 15 of 38. But you can't wind up giving up so much of a difference inside that arc. Free throws, again, not a huge margin for the Cavs. Suns were 14 of 16, Cavs 18 of 22. Rebounding, Suns right there, despite knowing the Cavs are a bigger team. Suns were 52 rebounds to the 54 for the Cavs, but the Cavs were sharing that ball, and it was magnet ball all night. The Cavs had 31 assists. The Suns only had 23, and you talked about it pregame. They need to be in that 26 to 30 range to really know that the offense is moving.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a sweet spot, something, a number to continue to keep an eye on throughout the game, and I think a lot of it speaks to converting on some of the quality looks that they weren't able to get to go today, and the Cavs were able to get them. You talk about it. I mean, I haven't seen Jordan Ott's scouting report, but I bet that next to Sam Merrill it says shooter, close out, and he shot 4 of 9 from 3, and he got some quality looks from beyond the arc. So that stands out to me. Another thing that stands out to me, like you mentioned, the 3-pointers were even. The Cavs, Suns actually shot better from beyond the arc, but not even necessarily to harp on the bigs because this is everybody has a hand in this stat. Points in the paint, Cavs 56, Suns 36. But beyond that, The Suns are 18 of 51 inside the painted area.
Yep.
To quote the great wow.
You wascally wabbit, you
wascally rabbit. Wow. Anyway, the 1851 inside
it's middle of the day
it's
for us
middle of the day
too.
for us too. We're 18 and 51 inside the paint. So that just shows they weren't able to convert in there. The Cavs were 28 to 49, so they're well over 50% inside there. So you could tell that kind of throws off your offense. We've talked so much about what getting rim pressure it does for your offense and how you can convert everywhere else. And I think that was where things kind of broke down. It also speaks to a lack of difference makers there in that area for the Suns in the paint too.
Yeah, and the Suns actually won the turnover battle.
Yeah.
Tonight.
The way they started the game, it's surprising that they did.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things that you'd look at and you went, oh, okay, the Suns actually didn't play that bad of a game. We thought, oh, if they could control the turnovers, not give up too many points to the Cavs that way, if they could be in the rebounding battle. But yeah, you just did yourself in with just really poor shooting tonight from, and again, not even from three inside the arc. And when you do that, you are just not going to win, especially against, I know the Cavs haven't played the greatest this year, but they're still a good team.
Absolutely.
They're still one of the better teams
last year.
Yeah.
They won, 65, 60, like that. Like they're still, the core of that team still exists. Obviously, one of their main coaches is on the other side of the sideline now. But, I think, and to kind of emphasize that too, because when we were talking about, okay, how can you neutralize that front court? Get him in foul trouble. Jared Allen, 0 fouls.
Yeah.
And I know that speaks to somewhat how he plays, but there's not one point in time where you make the refs make a judgment call. I know that the whistle hasn't necessarily been the kindest to the Suns all year, but I don't really think there's been a chance or opportunity where you're going in his chest or making him make a tough shot, going into him, making him swing. And like for the other team's opposing center to have 0 fouls all game, you probably should do something a little differently. And hopefully, again, you talk about getting Grayson back. That's where you miss Grayson. That's where you miss Jalen Green. You miss Jalen Green across the board.
Yeah,
but
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, a lot of ways. But having somebody to get downhill and make somebody come and help side and make a tough decision on whether they need to help and foul or not, that's something that I would like to have seen more of throughout this game.
Do you think that they should have tried to feed Mark a little bit? Only 3 shots. Tough to get bigs in foul trouble when your center isn't kind of forcing the issue in any way as well. It just felt like the perfect storm of bad stuff today for the team.
Yeah, I think especially with Mark, and when you think about front courts that have that much length and size, typically how you neutralize that is by pulling one of those guys out. And it wasn't necessarily. Dylan had a great start to the game, and it kind of faded away. And we've kind of seen this. Dylan has a good start, and Book kind of gets it going, and Dylan isn't really the guy anymore as the game goes on. But, they were able to, I guess, Royce 1 of 6 from 3, so it wasn't like they were that threatened. They could kind of keep those guys in there to take up so much space. And I say that to say a lot of the areas where we usually see Mark thrive as a cutter, as a roller, that was kind of clogged up. Watching him a lot of those times, especially when they were trying to make a concerted effort to get him going. I think early second half, there was a lob to him, and guys kind of boxed him out of the way, and they took the foul on the floor, didn't even get free throws of it. And that was really the last time, aside from the play where he avoided Evan Mobley on a cut, which, again, there was a guy waiting in help side to kind of crowd that space. So I think that, to combat that, you have to knock down shots and make them space out a little bit to give Mark more room to operate as a cutter, as a roller, or get creative, get him more in the open floor as we've seen. But he's trying to outrun some pretty agile big men in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So a lot of things that he typically does well, he couldn't really do tonight or this afternoon.
Oh, yeah. We'll do that throughout today's show. We'll continue to say tonight, this is where a game where it feels like if you had a stretch big, it would have benefited you a lot to force those guys out of the paint, open different things up. And we'll have to see. We've got about a month left before that trade deadline if the Suns pursue anybody like that. On the other side of the break, we've got to talk about the good in this game, and there were a handful of things right after this. Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Gil. We're going to be out there on Monday.
Can't wait.
It is a Suns watch party as they play the Houston Rockets. You got to deal with the former son, Kevin Durant. But the best part of it is you're going to be able to come out and hang out with us. But if you need somewhere to hang out tonight, you can do it with our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Why would you not go out there and check out all their New Year's Eve festivities? Because there's no better place to spend it than with them, because they've got unbelievable dining options. Their gaming floors are amazing. 4,500 live games, table games, and slots. There's no better place to ring in the new year than out there with some friends. And it's open 24 hours, so you don't have to go home. And you can even get a hotel room out at Wild Horse Pass. So you do you, especially tonight on New Year's Eve at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details, and Bet365. There's plenty of football games. I mean, I think there's like 16 bowl games on over the next 2 days. There's NFL football coming up this weekend. Important NFL football
Big
for
both
of your team
and
Harrison's team fighting for their divisions. Why would you not want to put a little scratch down? If you're going to do it, you got to do it with our friends at Bet365, because they have the best live in-game betting in the business. There is no doubt about that. They were the first to do it. They pioneered it. And unbelievable player props, everything that you want. But right now, they've got a great deal. Breaking news. Bet365 new customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use that promo code PHNX365. Deposit $10, place a bet for $5 for $150 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. Bonus bets can be used spreads, totals, player props, futures, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary with Bet365. Must be 21 and older, physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT up to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Talked about it before the break, but there were some bright spots in tonight's game. And in particular, a bright spot, and that'll bring us to our Dude of the Night, brought to you by our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. It has to be Devin Booker.
Got to be.
He had the third quarter that actually got this team back into it, had 19 points in that third quarter, finished with 32 points overall on 13 of 25 shooting, had 4 assists, 2 rebounds, had a block, had a steal as well. It is a good performance for him, not obviously the way you want the game to end, but you saw Devin kind of get in a rhythm that we haven't seen lately.
Yeah, that's what's important. And I know some people are saying like it was ISO ball and why we were rewarding that, and he wasn't great in the first half, and he wasn't great in the first half, right? No. There were some things that we would wanted to see more, maybe get shots, get going earlier in the game. But what he did in the third quarter was really important because, one, it made it a game, right? There was an opportunity to kind of really get close to cut to 4, cut to 2, 19 points in the third quarter. I think he had 17 in the first 6 minutes of the third quarter, but it was how he was doing it, right? Getting to the line. There was a step back through, in the left corner that he had that was really like, oh, he's in Armani mode. There was a transition 3 that he went to, didn't get it. But what's important, I think, is the mentality and the confidence that he has going to those things. I think it's been a difficult year for him because the people who have been brought in to relieve the pressure or are on this team to relieve some of the pressure that he doesn't have to play as much ISO ball have been in and out of the lineup. Grayson Allen, we've talked about how much he would help Devin Booker and make life easier for him. We know Jalen Green is going to make life easier for Devin Booker, and we have not seen that yet. But what I think is important to see in those moments where he's showing that confidence and still finding ways to score and finding ways to be impactful and get this team back in it is there are going to be times, hopefully, knock on wood, touch metal, whatever it is, that this team is healthy. And we get those guys out there, and he won't need to do that but in so many moments in the game, because in reality, in the NBA, you have to be able to go ISO mode sometimes. When everything shuts down, when you are playing high-leverage basketball in March and April in the postseason, you have to have a guy to go get a bucket for you. And Devin Booker having the confidence and the ability to do that, as we've known him to be able to do, is important.
Yeah, in a game like this where you had hardly any offense going for you in that first half, nobody could figure out how to put the ball in the bucket. Yeah, you need a guy that can go ISO, that can jumpstart your offense, and he did exactly that, and he's the only reason they got back in this game to begin with. He had to force the issue, and a lot of people have complained, well, he hasn't been aggressive enough at times this year. Well, you couldn't get more aggressive than he was in that third quarter, and they really, again, lost it when he went to the bench at the beginning of that fourth quarter where the Cavs lead ballooned. I would have argued let him continue to play and see how far you can take it there at the beginning of the fourth, and then pack it in if you saw that with him playing. But this was not a game where Devin Booker shot you out of it or it was any kind of issue. It was a game where Devin Booker kept you in it for as long as he could have, and I'm feeling like you're starting to see him get a little bit back to who he is since that injury. The last two games have given you a little bit of hope that he's finding that stroke. And in particular, tonight was 2 of 4 from deep, which he's shooting a career worst. He's like at around 30% from deep. It's good to see him to hit 50% tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that's important to remember, because you mentioned coming back from the injury, and he had the conversation about not feeling like himself, the court shorts, not being comfortable, and not necessarily knowing how to be aggressive or whatever. That path back to seeing what we're seeing more of is not necessarily linear, right? And I think that it's important to understand that, okay, there's going to be a couple games where the middy's there, the three's not. It might be a tough first half. The second half might be better. And I think at a certain point, the goal is just to get back to him playing complete games. Yeah. None of us have any idea of how bad that groin injury was. None of us know how much it was actually holding him back. And as we've known from him, he's not an excuse guy, so he's probably not going to let us know or let us in on that at all. So I think that it's important to take steps in the right direction, which tonight, this afternoon, was another step in the right in the right direction towards doing that. And moving forward, again, like another opportunity. I'm not calling the Kings a get right game, but knowing
the Kings are a get
Kings
right.
Are knowing that that's a team that's not the strongest with their perimeter defense.
No.
That's an opportunity for him to take this momentum. 26 points in the second half of this game against a Cavs team who is a little bit known more for what they do defensively, at least schematically, and keep going with that and get to the point where he's rolling when those other guys get back in the lineup, so you're not worried about anything but getting those guys acclimated and accustomed to it. So it was important to see that, and he got to the line a couple of times. I mentioned, he should have gotten to the line more than he actually did, and he picked up a tech, because that's how mad you can see those frustrations getting to where they are. But again, I mentioned 17 points in the first 6 minutes of the third quarter, and the deficit went from 13 to 5 in that time span. So it shows that is a winning formula when your best player is being like that. Newsflash. It's breaking news, I guess.
Surprise. Yeah. Also, a stat that I found interesting, Colin Gillespie had a pretty good game, dropped in 17 and was 5 of 11 for deep. He became the fifth Sun to have 5 straight games with 4 3-pointers or more. It's the longest current streak in the NBA, and if he does it again on Friday against the Kings, he has tied the Suns' record, which is held by both Raja Bell and Grayson Allen, who did it earlier in the year. So Colin continues to keep it going, and his hot shooting from deep has been really impressive. One thing I wanted to note, where we didn't talk about this at the beginning of the show, but the bench production today was a big reason why this team struggled as well. 33 points combined from the entire bench. Sam Merrill and Jalen Tyson had more than that, or had almost as much themselves off the bench for the Cavs. Actually had one more point than the entire Suns bench. This team has been predicated on that bench helping in so many ways, but I think at some point you were going to hit this where you've gone so far deep into your bench that you're going to have a game where they just can't come through and can't perform. And tonight certainly felt like that. Jamari Bouye had 18 points. Ryan Dunn was the only other player, or had the second highest with 6 points. You're not going to get it done there.
Yeah, and I would obviously, respect to him, but obviously probably take Nigel's 5 out of that 33 figure you talked about, because that was late in the game, and when it was well into garbage time. But yeah, to that point, even looking at it closer, Jordan Goodwin, Ryan Dunn combined 3 of 18 from the field. So they scored 10 points on 3 of 18 shooting, which is like 15, 16%, which it's not great.
I mean, it was the whole first quarter inside the arc.
Yeah. And that's the thing with, and I know Goody's for shooting percentages you have to take with a grain of salt because a lot of it is like tip-ins that he's not making. He had 8 offensive rebounds in this game. So, anyway, that's something we'll get into a little bit more with that. But Ryan Dunn, 2 of 4 from 3. I know a couple of those misses were those layups on that possession where he couldn't put that pressure on those guys. So it's not necessarily the fact that we're expecting these guys to be world beaters or all of that, but to be realistic, you're asking your 9th, 10th man, 8th, 9th man, whatever, to be your 7th man or be your 6th starter, whatever it is. And that takes a toll eventually. And sometimes, especially when you have the guy who was initially supposed to be your 6th man is now just your starter who's, setting franchise records potentially. That's a league leader as far as consecutive games with 4+ threes after today's game. So everybody is still punching up a weight class, and sometimes it's sustainable, sometimes it's not, and sometimes you see what you see today. And to be fair, also, bad matchup if Oso is going to go 0 for 4. If you're playing against this Cavs team that has length and physicality, if Ryan Dunn's not going to be able to finish around the rim or finish over the top of these guys, if Jordan Goodwin is not going to have the size to convert those offensive rebounds, you're probably going to see numbers like that, which makes it a tough matchup for those guys.
You bring up Ryan Dunn, and I was frustrated by somebody who didn't play.
We talked about this pregame.
Yeah, we did. With Ryan Dunn back, it was Rasheer Fleming, and Isaiah Livers is the guy that got the minutes to start. He only got 6 of them, but I look at Ryan's fairly ineffectiveness at times. Isaiah Livers essentially invisible 6 minutes that he played. He had 2 rebounds. That was about it. Rasheer Fleming had kind of started to find a little bit of a rhythm. I think that's one of the guys you should have turned to try to help those defensive rotations because they were lacking, to say the least, in that first half. You like what you started to see from Rasheer offensively, and you know that he's a tough defender. I was disappointed that he didn't get more minutes tonight and that they turned elsewhere, in particular Livers, and why you didn't go back to that. Well, Fleming didn't get in until the last 4 minutes and had two blocks in that time. I know it says 1. He had 2. They
shortchanged him.
They shortchanged him on 1. I don't understand why you didn't turn to that direction at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you asked me beforehand. We buried the lead talking about everything else with everything. But when I was like, I think he's shown enough to maybe get a spot in that rotation. I think where Ryan Dunn helped himself today is that he made 2 of those open looks from beyond the arc. And they trusted him with his one-on-one defense against some of those Cavs perimeter guys. But I think just the threat or the idea or trusting Rasheer, maybe that's the next step is them trusting him to be in space against a Donovan Mitchell because he hasn't really had to do that. I know he played some key minutes against the Pelicans, and they've got guys on their roster, but they don't have Donovan Mitchell on their roster. So maybe it was I don't want to put him in that position or that spot, but at the same time, obviously they know what he's prepared for already or not more than we will. But at the same time, it couldn't have been much different or worse. Or if he misses a rotation, pull him. So it'll be interesting to see again. It's the Kings coming up next, but interesting to see when that trust kind of changes when this team has their full complement of guys.
They were pulling guys for missing rotations. They would have had like 2 guys on the court.
Hockey subs.
Tonight. I did it now.
It would have been hockey shifts.
Yeah, it would not have been pretty this evening. We are going to wind up getting to blue collarness of this whole game right after this on the PHNX Suns postgame show. I'll tell you about our friends at Shopify. Shopify is where business gets done on the internet. Let's just be honest. That is what most e-commerce sites are running off of right now, including ours at All City. I buy so many shirts and hats at our locker. Yeah, I buy them. I'm not giving them. And that's not a shot. But it's so easy to use. It's fantastic to put together. And the website's easy to manage as well. And when you're running an online business and store, That's what you want. You want ease of use, both for your customer, but for you who's setting it up. And Shopify makes it so easy. And with so much online shopping, if you're trying to start your business, why not do it with somebody that knows how to do it so well? So turn your big business idea into cha-ching with a Spotify on your side. Sign up for a $1 per month trial. Start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. Cha-ching. And the husband and wife law team. Gil, have you ever been in a serious accident?
Thankfully, no.
You have not. Well, I have been, and there was injury involved in it, serious injury. And I've told this story. I've told you, I think, but I did not pick a good lawyer. I didn't research. I just went with somebody that a chiropractor actually suggested, and it was extremely difficult. Let's just say I wasn't in alignment with my lawyer. But with the husband and wife law team, Mark and Alexis Breyer, you can be in alignment with your lawyers because they specialize in accident and serious injury law, and they take it seriously, and they're more worried about what happens for you than they are about their bottom line, and that's what you want. So if you've had a serious injury, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841 or visit their website in the link in our show notes and tell them PHNX sent you. And I threatened it. We got to talk about the blue collarness of this game. A couple guys deserve to be mentioned in this, and I'm going to start with the guy that didn't win. I know this is unconventional, but I want to talk about Jamari Bouye, who had 18 points in 15 minutes tonight, was 7 of 12, 2 of 3 from deep, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. He went out there and caught lightning in a bottle offensively.
Yeah, no, I mean, I said caught lightning in a bottle that ties his career high with 18 points. I know he was able to be, and it's been fun to talk about and watch him do it, not even to a lesser extent, to a similar extent in a very different way than Colin Gillespie. But it was a guy who, when joined this team, didn't necessarily know what we were going to get from him, thought he was going to be a guy who is just kind of an anchor for the Valley Suns and helps those guys with their development. Mm-hmm. Then he just becomes a rotational player for this team who can be relied upon and trusted regardless of who's out of the lineup on the perimeter. And he did some things in this first half. He did some things throughout the game this evening that are consistent with what we've seen from him. And I think we've long ago turned the corner of saying, okay, this is sustainable. He belongs. He is an NBA player. It just goes to show you that he needed to find the right fit, the right situation, the right system. And he did that again today.
I don't know what you do when you're back at full strength because you have it's a good spot to be in. Yeah. You have a lot of good guards. Maybe it opens up a trade in some way. Maybe it doesn't. But that's it's going to be tough. I do not envy Jordan Ott and Brian Gregory in trying to figure out that problem. But as fans, I'm all right with it because it means you have too much of a good thing rather than not enough.
Yeah, it gives you flexibility. Like you said, if a trade comes up, you don't have to necessarily – maybe you take a risk and say, insert guard here who's higher on the totem pole. I feel okay with parting ways with him to give him a bigger role and knowing that Colin Gillespie has to get paid down the line as well. So you would do that with that information, what you may. We know nothing, but that could be something that happens down the line. But also it could be kind of the type of situation where you have the luxury of rolling with the hot hand, right? Man, this isn't a good matchup for insert guard here, Goody or whatever, rotational guard. Maybe this is a better matchup for Jamari. Maybe this is vice versa. Maybe we want to run a 3 or 4 guard lineup against a smaller team, or we want to go against a team who's bigger, but we want to run them off the court. It gives you a lot of flexibility knowing that he is a solid rotational level player who also plays really well off of a myriad of guys on this roster. And I think that speaks so much to the type of player that he is. And I think if you're going to be that journeyman type of guy, you have to be malleable, and that's exactly what Jamari Bouye is.
You've had a lot of guys that have been malleable like that and that have been willing to do it. And that brings us to our blue-collar boy of the night. Remember, accept no substitutes. Nobody else has done blue-collar boy before us. That was a Stephen Prigion Garner special, and we have made it a thing here on the program. So when other people start using it, remember where it started, right here. And we've got to give our blue-collar boy of the night to the one, the only, drum roll please, Jordan Goodwin is our blue collar boy. Not because of anything he did offensively. Let's make that very clear. It was because of what he did on the boards yet again. 15 rebounds, 8 of them offensively, 7 on the defensive board. Yeah, 1 of 11. I see it. But it's not, blue collar boy ain't about being pretty and doing all the scoring. It's about rolling up those sleeves and getting dirty, and he's done that on the boards.
Yeah, and I would love to look back and see how many of those 10 misses were missed tap-ins. Like, he was right around there, and, I'm not even mad at him for the fact that he tried to get around the glass, and there was a guy 6'11" waiting for him, and he just couldn't get the tip in over him. But, yeah, I mean, 8 offensive boards that he had, and I think you and I had a good laugh when I was like, oh, he's got to be close to a career high in rebounds. For those of you wondering, no, he had 19 rebounds in a game.
Which blows my mind because before this year, when was he playing enough minutes to get 19 rebounds
19 rebounds. When he was with Memphis, he had 19 rebounds in a game. Against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs at that. So 19 rebounds in a game for a guy who is listed at 6'3", 215, 15 tonight. And we talked again about how big this Cavs front court is, how big their lineup is outside from their backcourt, which is pretty small. But for him to get active and be active and remain active, and at this point, we talked about it, we know for a fact, it's on the scouting report, he likes to crash the offensive glass. I even kind of joked and said he's due for one putback a game, and that was before I was really, really familiar with him. And now I'm like, how come teams haven't figured out to keep him off the glass? But he's so active, he understands the angles, he knows when to crash, and it's really impressive to see because it didn't really have that effect tonight, but I can see down the line, you're playing in a big game. You're playing in a big game at home. It's a scoring drought. You're on a run. Whatever it is, the energy that he plays with on the offensive glass and those putbacks, those are plays that get the team going. They either swing the momentum your way or get the momentum going, and they can oftentimes be demoralizing as well. So the fact that he continues to do it, he's persistent with it, and that's a big reason why he's carved a lane for himself. And it wasn't just the offensive glass. He was active in passing lanes. He was picking people up and being a pest defensively. So he epitomizes what we think of when we talk about blue-collar boys.
I wonder, too, offensively, if the mask is having an impact in terms of his shooting ability. Yeah, it significantly changes that, and we've heard plenty of players who've had to wear it talk about it. But he's, to your point, such a smart rebounder, great on the defensive end, very malleable, like you said about Bouye as well. Another guy that they're going to have to figure out who do you play him with, what kind of minutes do you get? But that is a 2026 problem, not a 2025 problem, as we have 7 hours and 20 minutes left to go in this year. Not in the program. We're not going that long. Sorry.
We're not?
Not tonight. No. I know you probably, you're new in town. You don't necessarily have plans. I have places I want to be.
There you go. Say no more.
So, yeah, that is our blue-collar boy of the night. But we got to get to our love the play, and usually I'll just dictate this, but was there a play that stood out to you? I'm gonna throw the grenade your way. In a game that was pretty ugly, was there one that you went, all right, that was pretty enough?
I mentioned it because I even clipped it myself. The Armani mode, shoulder in, step back in left corner, mostly because that's a really tough shot. It was a catch and shoot. It was off the drive and kick from Colin Gillespie, and Book catches in the corner. Typically, you just catch and shoot from there. You don't put your shoulder into somebody and step back into the corner and shoot. I was like, oh, this is not a great shot, but I think that just speaks to his talent, his shot-making ability, and I look at that as a play, not necessarily as like a turning point, but as we get back to Book being completely Book, I think he's maybe 80, 85% of the way there. We'll look at those milestones, plays like that. I think when we'll realize he's closer to being 100% when he hits a transition three. Because there's been a couple of them now that he's gone for, and if he had hit one night, that probably would have been what I chose. But I think that's one of those milestones along the way. There was a drive that he had against the Lakers last week. What day is today? Last week. At some point this season, and then having that one. So I think that was a big one to see that from him because he did stand out. And I honorable mention would be some of that early first quarter, early game, Dylan Brooks takeover was pretty good to see too.
I'm sorry I put you through that, and I'm still not going to name any of that. Our play, love the play, because it is now time for Love the Play, brought to you by our friends at the Arizona Lottery Play and Gift today. And for me, the play of the game wasn't an actual play. It was our friend Amanda Pflugrad, who dropped the news that Book has his dog Hector in dog training school in D.C., and after the Wizards game went to visit him. That was my moment of the game. The love the play. She hustled and got information that we all wanted.
I mean, honestly, that's another turning point, because we learned so much about what people do with their dog.
Did we learn, or do we just have more questions? Because I have so many questions about this.
I mean, my first question was like, is this what being wealthy is like? To have, like, to be based here and your dog is just, and like, that must be the best damn obedient school, or whatever you want to call it, in this, like, probably this, like, hemisphere.
Do they have like dog virtual reality headsets that they like train their mind? Like, you could not find, this is no knock on Book. I'm just trying to, you couldn't find somebody within, a 4-state radius. That
you would think that they were like somewhere around here. You would think.
I mean, you sent it to DC. Is he training with the CIA? Like, is he becoming a special agent? Does he have a license for skill, just like Devin Booker?
I would say he might be taking acting lessons, but that would be more of a Hollywood.
Hollywood. I feel like this is playing into the Book too. Secret agent, assassin kind of thing. Is he training the dog to help him on these missions that he's supposedly going on?
Maybe he's training the dog to guard an open space, and this is the new big man that we're waiting on. Like,
that's the backup to Mark.
This is the new
Hector.
Hector is coming in to fill out the center rotation. Hector's contesting without fouling and hedging on the screens.
Couldn't he just bring Hector to Jamari Bouye and Jordan Goodwin? They know how to be dogs. They could train him.
They do got that dog in it.
Like that. Those are the dogs that have been helping Devin Booker the most this year. Why wouldn't he want Hector with them?
Because we need something different. That's too much overlap. That makes it even harder for Jordan Oz to pick what guy to play. You need to make it easy. It's like, get the big man rotation right.
And if he's good on defense, is he a guard dog then? That's the kind of game this was. I'm sitting here talking about training dogs. Devin Booker sending his dog to DC to be trained. That's where we are. Let's take a look at our super chats here as we start to wrap up our post game and wrap up the year of 2025. Master the Power of Joe with the $4.99 super chat says 5 games over 500. We're doing fine. We lost to a good team in their arena. I still feel good about our fight, and 2026 is going to be great. Now, I think that's the attitude and the approach that Suns fans need to be having going into the new year, despite today's game.
Yeah, absolutely. They weren't going to finish 69-13. It would have been nice.
Real nice.
They were bound to lose one again, and like you said, to go into the new year 19-14. You play against a team who is coming into the season was a title contender. They won 60+ games last season. To lose on their home court and fight and make them uncomfortable a little bit, knowing you could have played much better. Nothing to hang your hat on. And I think the biggest thing to take from that specifically, and we've talked about it with this Suns team, I don't think whatever from today is going to carry over into Friday, because you have a big opportunity Friday.
Yeah, can't let it carry over. That's how this team has operated all year. Is okay, something happened, on to the next one. Yep. Can't ever let it lean into it. But I want to thank Matt to the Power of Joe, who's been here, been on Southwest Bias, and everybody that are our regulars. We appreciate it. 2025 has been something, but 2026 should be great. Is this Chloe? Chloe with the $5 super chat says, Dunn has been the biggest disappointment to me this year. He's playing worse than his rookie year. Rather see Fleming, to be honest. He has no control still. There are things about Ryan Dunn's game that I think have been disappointing in the sophomore season, that you had hoped he was going to take that next step. But I also think part of this is, I think Suns fans got a little too high on their own supply when it came to Ryan Dunn and last year, and that I don't know if this is so much a regression as it is some of the realities and deficiencies of his game that it's going to take a little while for him to figure out.
Yeah, and I think a big variable to add to that too is, for a young player to have 2 completely different coaching staffs in the first 2 years of their career, who knows what type of impact that has. Obviously, they believe in him. He is a part of the rotation, and they want him to do similar things, but terminology changes, where you're expected to be in rotations and things like that change. And obviously not even making excuses, just trying to peel back the layers of why he may or may not have been disappointing up to this point in this season, because there have been highs as well. There have been some lows. I mean, I think back to when he got back in the lineup that game in LA when it was a win. And we talked about how impressed we were with his activity and the things that he did, the way he was crashing the offensive glass. There are things like that that he does, the potential that he has to be an elite defender, to come in and not necessarily completely neutralize the other team's best player, but to make life very difficult for them. He has that potential to be that guy. So I think, to your point, it is disappointing to see him not necessarily build on what you saw, but I think it's important to also recognize that what we saw last year is still there, but it needs to be refined to the point where towards the end of this year, going into his third year, you just want to see a certain level of consistency, but it's far too soon or too early. I'm not saying that you did this, Chloe, but to be like, oh, it's done. I think there's plenty of time for him to figure it out.
I feel like we're seeing a lot of what he did last year, though. It's just the offense hasn't taken a step. Sure, maybe he scored more at times last year, but a lot of that was because there was no real second unit. It was such a down year that there were opportunities. Here, he's getting minimal opportunities on offense, isn't always connecting on them, which nobody expected him. He's not a sharp shooter. We know this. He's still trying to work on that three. I feel like the defense is there, but he hasn't been put in a situation like he was to be the primary defender like he was last year, because Dillon Brooks is here, because your overall defense is better. So I don't know if it's a regression as much as it's not growth. As
role reduction to a extent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's easier to kind of blend into the background a little bit more when your role is a lesser extent. For sure. So it's going to be interesting to watch if he finds that offensive rhythm. And once these rotations get to what they're really supposed to look like, if they do, we keep saying when. Yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't ever. But if they get back to it and he gets to understand a very specific role, I'll be interested to see if he can flourish in it or not. Hoosman with the $10 super chat, thank you, says, are these the games where Oso is more of a liability than an asset based on his lack of offense? Plays where he would get the ball right under the hoop and he'd pass it to a smaller player underneath. Yes, I think that this is the case, but where do you land on this, Gil?
Some things stood out to me, and it was one play. I don't know if you remember this one, but it stood out so much because you don't see it often. But they had him bring the ball up and initiate the offense, which we know he's capable of doing because he's a smart player, cerebral player, connective player, and he can pass the ball well. But I think what we've seen some teams do, a lot of teams do, when he's initiating the offense, they shut everything else down. And not every team has the personnel for it, but when they do, everything falls apart. And I saw the Cavs do that. And I think that once a team goes to that, it kind of takes away a full package of what Oso is able to do or bring to the table offensively. Talk about his finishing or scoring around the rim. When they're two big guys taking up that much space and the floor is not spaced out to where those guys can just take up that space, where Jared Allen's kind of taking up the space and Evan Mobley's roaming, it makes it harder for him to operate just given the strengths that we know that he has. I think that's why we talk about the Warriors being such a good matchup for him, that we've seen him thrive in that, because they don't really have traditional rim protection. They don't really have a guy who's just taking up space that's defensive minded in that sense. So, the agility, the size, him being a cerebral player, I think is good for some nights, but it's really tough because typically, and I think this is what's so unique about the Cavs, typically if it's not an Oso night, then it's a Mark night and vice versa. But the Cavs present such unique differences that they can neutralize both of them, and I think that's why we saw the big man rotation struggle the way it did tonight.
Yeah, and I think that this is also where you have to accept that this is still a flawed team.
Yeah,
like we get very excited, very upbeat about where they are, but the reality is they still are a 6, 7, 8 seed in the West the way that they've played, because there are a handful of deficiencies, and the question is, do you figure out a way to fill those before the trade deadline, or is this an off-season kind of thing? And do you just have to accept that?
Yeah.
And teams like the Cavs, the Rockets,
Yeah.
unfortunately, who you're going to see on Monday, have given the Suns trouble because of their dual big lineup.
See Thunder on Sunday do the same thing too.
Yes, Thunder on Sunday,
Yeah.
Rockets on Monday. Yeah, it's a difficult group to go against there, and I think there are going to be nights like that. And yeah, to your point, Usman, I think there are times where Oso should be a nice to have, not a need to have in certain games, and that's where you're going to have to figure out your big man rotation here. Gil, I want to bring up a story you told me before we came on here about your trip while you were out in North Carolina. You had an interesting experience at a bar. Don't worry, you don't have to put the kids to bed in the middle of the afternoon. This is a clean story, but you were at a bar in North Carolina.
Yeah,
what happened?
Yeah, bar in North Carolina. One of my good friends, Pat, former roommate, and we are just standing around, just chatting, catching up because I hadn't seen him since I moved. And I overhear somebody say, "That looks like the guy from the Suns show I watch."
3,000 miles away.
Yeah, 3,000 miles away. And honestly, I think I'm hearing things. I mean, it wasn't that kind of night, people. We were just.
Have you gotten so such a big head that now you're just assuming people are shouting you out in bars?
And I turned my head, and the guy goes, "That is the guy from the Sun show that I watch." And he's like, "Man, you with PHNX." So I don't know if you're watching today, but my guy Robbie said he watches us religiously. He lives in Charlotte now. He's a big fan of all things Phoenix sports. But for him to recognize me in public to speak, we chopped it up, talked about the team, talked about everything that I've learned about my time living here so far. But it was really cool. Reminder of the reach that we have, reminder of the community that you guys are for us and how we are nothing without you guys watching us and tuning in with us. So that's really cool moment for me and a reminder of why I'm so glad to be a part of this team.
Did you ever get recognized like that at Wake Forest? We're like, "Hey, you're the guy that's in the warm-ups. That's cute.
Hey, you're the guy that made one free throw against Notre Dame." No, that never happened. That didn't happen for me.
No, so this is the first.
Yeah,
well, congratulations.
Yeah.
It gets really creepy when you've talked about something personal on the show,
and
you're in a Home Depot, and somebody goes, "Hey, Espo, how's your wife?" And I'm like, "Huh?" And yeah, so I love it though that there's so many people that care about this team, this program, and that they're willing to come out and say hi to everybody. And this 2025 has had its ups and downs, both on the court and off it. We are all aware of that. And I wanted to take a few seconds here to thank each and every one of you for being along for this ride. A multitude of changes, different things going on, but each and every one of you have been a part of this, whether you just joined us recently, whether you've been here since 2021. We appreciate you so greatly. It has not always been easy to be a Suns fan, and you guys have stuck along on the ride with us, and this has been and will continue to be a dream job for me. And as Gil said, we couldn't do it without each and every one of you. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being along for this ride, for supporting us, whether you just stop in and hit the like button, you're part of the show, whether you're a supporter club member, whether you're a diehard member on the website, whether you consume every show or you only get here every once in a while. Thank you. It means so much to myself and to everybody here. I know it means a lot to Ayrton. Gil's only been here a short time, but I know it means the world to him. White Noise, Eric Ruby means a lot to him and your support. I know it means a great deal to Steven, who just kind of started doing this as a hobby, breaking down film on Twitter, and now gets to sit in this seat and cover this team. It's important to him and the entire staff here. We appreciate you sticking with us through everything and through this year. We're wishing you and yours a happy and healthy 2026, and we'll be here for the ride no matter what comes with it. Breaking news, whether it's 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, we'll be here. Games, whether they're at 1 in the afternoon or 9 p.m. at night, we'll be here for you, and everything in between. Gil, anything that you're hoping for in 2026? Are you a resolutions guy?
Well, personal resolutions, I'm working on my sleep habits, so yeah, I'll be better about that. But I mean, with this, I'm just really excited to really like immerse myself and become a part of this. Like you said, it's been a little over a month since I moved out here, and hopefully this team can play some real meaningful basketball deep into April, and we'll have something to talk about. And that's the big thing I'm looking forward to with this. And I think the resolution of health for the team will be really good too. So personal, team for us, and also to watch some good Suns basketball will be good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah. All that health, everything would be great, and going to continue to work hard. We all are here. I'm excited to see some of the stuff you have coming up.
Yeah.
This man's working on an interview. I think you're all going to enjoy plenty of new content coming up as well. And I'm going to continue to work on my health for my personal health this year for myself and my family. Looking forward to that. And I'm working on myself some audio content that I think you'll like in the new year. Maybe some audio documentaries, if you will. Going to try to do those for each and every one of you. Buddha, I see you asking, are you your super chat read? I do not see it in the system, but if you want to resend your message right here, I will read it right now before we get out of here, as time is wrapping up here on the PHNX Suns post-game show. A 129-113 Suns loss. Again, Devin Booker has a big game. Unfortunately, not enough for them. Buddha found your super chat here. Happy birthday, the best rapper in AZ, 2-D. Couldn't get the Suns win, but we're still going to party for the rest of the year, which is about 7 hours and 1 minute is what you got left, 2-D. When I listen to rap, it's Buddha and 2-D who I get my bars from. I think I said that right. So, yeah, we got that going for us. Yeah, it sounded good. Sounded like I knew what I was talking about. So, Buddha, there you go. Happy New Year to every one of you that are in the chat, wishing us a happy New Year as well. Aaliyah heading into her 3rd year in high school in 2026. I am like my 30th year out of high school, and I wish I was joking. It's not that far off.
I'm going on 15. So
yeah, it's a little a little less than 30, but yeah, it's been a long time. 25, 24 years. So, but thank you each and every one of you for being here. You can follow Gil, the smooth one, at Gil_McGregor. The underscore is at the end because you need somewhere to put that 16-point loss. You got the Freckled Mamba Ayrton behind the Mac. You can follow him at Freckled Mamba. And he's called Freckled Mamba because, you know what, he's got freckles, but he plays ball like Kobe. You can follow me at Espo. It's the best 4-letter word in the dictionary. And you can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. The underscore's there because we're saving it for a Larry O'Brien trophy. Eventually, we will be, well, not me. The guys will be back on Friday for a pre- and post-game show. I'm taking a vacation.
Well deserved.
But I will be back on Monday for that Rockets game. So until then, ahoy hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.